Firmest indication yet of an apparent terrorist motivation to this attack outside the Irish Army barracks on Thursday evening. The suspect, a 16-year-old boy, according to the court, appeared to have a radical Islamist mindset and possess material linked to the Islamic State terror group. The victim, Father Paul Murphy, was returning to the barracks in his car when he was confronted and stabbed multiple times. Security cameras recorded 20 separate stabbing movements. He suffered multiple deep lacerations. The teenager has been remanded back into custody.
In Scotland, a member of the SNP has been kicked out of the party for comments about the Israel-Hamas war, described as utterly abhorrent. John Mason's been accused of flippantly dismissing the deaths of more than 40,000 Palestinians. The MSP has been stripped of the party whip following the social media post. Party officials will now meet to discuss a fixed time period of suspension. In other news, it's reported that former newsreader Hugh Edwards is now accused of sexually assaulting a 27-year-old man in a West End club after sending explicit text messages. This follows earlier revelations that the 62-year-old admitted receiving child sex images and videos. The alleged victim claims Edwards, who continued despite being asked to stop, was brazenly aggressive and got off on the risk of getting caught. It's also alleged in the Daily Mail and the Sun newspaper the former BBC star threatened to kill anyone who looked at the man, whom he described as his possession. And anyone travelling to an African country affected by a new strain of Mpox is being urged to get vaccinated. Fresh advice has been issued by the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control after the virus emerged in the Congo. More than 500 people have died on the continent so far this year. Sweden's recorded its first case, while Pakistan's trying to establish whether a person there has been affected. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia, and welcome to the Saturday Night Showdown. Now, we've seen two-tier policing during the riots, with top cops ignoring violence from Muslim mobs after sitting down with community leaders, while white British people get no such privilege. They just get dogs and baton charges. Are we now seeing two-tier sentences in the courts? I think we can all agree that violence is reprehensible and should be punished with the full force of the law. But some of these sentences are for sharing memes on Facebook or shouting spicy things. We've seen children as young as 12 facing sentencing in adult courts, and judges citing anti-establishment opinions. A judge even told people they'd be jailed for just observing a riot. And is due process being followed? Keir's 24-hour courts have been holding suspects without bail and rushing convictions and sentences through. Let's have a look at some of these sentences. 61-year-old David Spring was sentenced to 18 months in prison despite being a carer for his wife who has health problems. He pleaded guilty to violent disorder during a riot at Whitehall. According to the Sutton Guardian, Spring's role in the disorder was making threatening and hostile gestures towards police, shouting abuse at officers and joining in chants of "Who the F is Allah?" Now, I fully support the state punishing people who commit violence, but shouting and making gestures at police falls far short of this. And a gay couple were jailed for more than 2 years each after they walked into the riots after a day at the bingo. The bingo! I thought these rioters were all far-right thugs. Are you telling me the EDL go to the bingo now? Two fat Nazis, 88. They told the court they had happened upon the riot by chance when they went out late in the evening to buy more alcohol. I'd never get between a northern gay and the booze shop. According to the Teesside Gazette, former school governor Stephen Malin, 54, and his partner, Ryan Shears, 29, bit of an age gap, were captured dancing and gesticulating at a line of police officers as the crowd behind them roared on the evening of July the 31st. Malin shouted abuse at an officer. Dancing, gesticulating, shouting abuse. Can this get any more evil? The police hit them with batons and set their dogs on them. One of them was bit in the bum. I mean, that kind of sounds worse than gesticulating. I kind of feel that justice was already served. Anyway, I'm joined tonight by entrepreneur and dating coach Kezia Noble and the comedian and famous international playboy Bruce Devlin. Bruce. Bruce is a Scotsman who enjoys the occasional tipple.
Absolutely.
I sort of feel like, there, but for the grace of God. That could have been us stumbling out of the bingo and into a riot by accident.
Well, I mean, that is the thing. We do like a day out and things can go awry. I don't know if anyone had seen the footage, but sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it's when the dog bites the guy on the bum.
Yeah.
It just all seems a wee bit unnecessary.
Yeah.
The bum biting.
It did feel that, in some of these cases, they'd already been dealt with quite harshly. Being bitten by a dog, being hit by the police after, fairly minor stuff. I mean, I know it's part of a bigger violent disorder, but I feel like, giving them 26 months in jail each on top of that is quite a lot.
The reason why they're doing this is because the government want to silence the people in this country who have had enough of mass uncontrolled immigration. Europe want mass immigration. The West want it, Canada, Australia. And people are starting to speak out. And when they saw those votes coming in for the Reform Party, they got scared. They got worried. And now they're doing everything to silence us.
Yeah.
That's what's happening here. They'll forget dogs. That's just the first step. They'll just...
Are they going to move on to cows?
No, they'll just immediately arrest people and sentence them at some point because they don't like what's happening. People are getting fed up with this mass uncontrolled immigration.
Well, I mean, this is your opinion. Obviously, there are people out there who would say we need mass uncontrolled immigration because, for example, if you're a landlord, it pushes up rental prices.
Or if you're,
or if you've got a business, then you can have cheap workers for your business, and it destroys the power of the unions. Destroys
the quality of life is getting worse as a result. I don't care about GDP. Our quality of life is getting worse. I grew up in the 90s and 80s. There was no waiting lists for anything. You could get a parking space, you could get on the housing market, your child could get into the local school. The quality of life has deteriorated. When I ask people, what has mass immigration done for you? They really struggle. They say GDP. Of course, landlords, property developers have made a lot of money from it, but they are in the minority. The vast majority of people, their quality of life has eroded.
Yeah.
It has, as a result of...
And we've seen that in some of the towns that saw the rioting, like these northern towns, Rotherham, Rochdale, the places that have some of the awkward history with immigration. They've actually seen in the last 10, 20 years, they've seen unemployment and people claiming incapacity benefit. The number of people claiming, the percentage of the population claiming, is actually going up. So people aren't. The economy's not thriving as a result of.
But going back to the sentences for things like gesticulation, dancing, jeering, and screaming, or whatever you want to call it. We are told constantly that we have no room in prisons for proper offences, whether they be violence by virtue of murder or sexual offences or any of that. There's cases in Scotland where people have been convicted of sexual crimes and they haven't even been given community service. So my point would be that it's kind of like, OK, I understand that they want to make their voice heard. We won't tolerate this and we won't do that. But are you going after low-hanging fruit?
Well, and also they're clearing the prisons out of people. There's a guy who's involved in a machete murder who only served 6 months in the end, and they let him out of jail early so they could make space for somebody who'd sent a fruity meme. And yes,
the bingo now.
Yeah, well, back to these guys. I mean, at least these people were actually present at a riot. The bingo guys were actually at a riot. Other people have been jailed for sharing memes on social media. 51-year-old Lee Joseph Dunn was handed an immediate 8-week jail term for 3 Facebook posts showing such things as a group of men, Asian in appearance, at Egremont Crab Fair in 2025. It's quite a niche, specific place to be, with the caption, "Coming to a town near you." Now, I don't see what's wrong with this, apart from the fact that they're Muslim at a shellfish fair, so I think that's against their religion to eat shellfish. But the fact that we're having Asian men coming to these towns is factually correct, with immigration soaring to new highs, thousands of men coming across the channel in small boats, and the government's Operation Scatter policy ensuring that these new arrivals are spread across the country. It's simply a matter of fact that, this is likely to happen. The Muslim Council of Britain even point out that fully a third of population growth in the UK is Muslim. Muslims have more kids, and obviously there's high immigration from Muslim countries coming to the UK. Britain's future is as a Muslim country. Obviously, I think this is a good thing and very enriching, because I don't want to go to jail. But we can't deny that it's happening. Another man was convicted for social media posts after a court was told they contained anti-establishment rhetoric. So we're not allowed to criticise the establishment now? And people on the left who spread misinformation haven't been prosecuted, such as Labour's Jess Phillips or Hope Not Hate, who spread inflammatory hoaxes about acid attacks on Muslim women by white men and 100 far-right protests. Jess has at least apologised. And let's take a look at some other sentences for other people who engaged in sectarian violence. The Golders Green supermarket knife attacker avoided prison altogether, and Muslim men who drove through Jewish areas shouting rape threats, threatening to rape Jewish daughters, had their charges dropped. Now, Hope Not Hate's boss spread a dangerous rumour that could have incited violence, but they're not arrested. Is this more evidence of a two-tier approach? The fact that they're not arrested, but somebody who shares different memes, if they've got a different political persuasion, even if they're less inflammatory, does get arrested and does get sent to jail. Two-tier
policing, two-tier reporting, two-tier sentencing, two-tier outrage. This goes on. Where are all these Stand Against Racism mob when it comes to Jews being attacked?
Yeah.
Why don't they care about them?
Weirdly, it seems to be a fashionable racism amongst the sort of woke progressive types who are normally...
it's a trend. It's a trend, yeah. I know. I feel, it's terrible, and it's just more evidence that there's this two-tier everything now.
Yeah.
It's like the whole thing. It's like, everyone's outraged about what's happening in Gaza, but they're not outraged about what's happening in Sudan or Yemen or Syria. That's fine. Let's get outraged about this two-tier outrage, two-tier sentencing. This is a big problem. I think we're really getting split as a nation now.
Yeah.
And I don't put everything down to immigration. I believe that what you said at the beginning, like there are a lot of Muslim people coming over. I don't think it's just Muslim. I think they just want people from the third world, wherever it is. It might be India, which is not a Muslim country. Yeah. They want people from the third world so that our expectations and our quality of life deteriorate. So we don't expect the same amount. Because if you bring the third world here, you have the third world sort of expectations that they have.
Well, is there an issue with...
That's not racism, by the way. That's not because the people are a certain colour. That's nothing to do with it. Yeah. It is from,
obviously a lot of people
does not have what we have.
Yeah, and a lot of people come here and integrate. My uncle is Indian, and he came here, and he's one of the most patriotic, proud to be British.
This has nothing to do with race.
Yeah.
Zero to do with race. This is to do with culture.
Yeah, and I think this is exposing the sort of failure of multiculturalism. I think, Tony Blair had this dream that, we can make Britain into this melting pot of people. But in fact, perhaps it would have been better managed. We would see less sectarian violence and less inter-ethnic conflict if people had been encouraged to be British and sign up to British values.
I think Tony was against that, yet he was up for war crimes.
Yeah, he was a complex man.
I think that's the thing, that there doesn't seem to be consistency across the board.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And moving on, a judge in Belfast said that he'd lock people up even if they were just observing the riots. Never mind the right to protest. In Britain, you don't even have the right to observe a protest. We've got facial recognition, the internet being monitored and policed, and people being locked up for observing protests, arrestees subjected to public humiliation. You might be thinking, Keir is turning us into communist China, an unchallengeable autocratic regime that clamps down hard on civil liberties and jails dissidents, laws so vague and broad that everyone has broken them. So then the state can pick and choose who to punish for breaking those laws, and everyone lives in fear of them. But one crucial difference between the Labour Party and the Chinese Communist Party is that China does all this surveillance and monitoring and policing of its people to enhance patriotism and national unity, whereas Keir is trying to destroy patriotism and national unity. Now, Labour are slumping in the polls. Do you think this has played out badly for Keir?
I don't know if it's played. I mean, I suppose it's early days with them being in government and all that kind of stuff. But you know, people got Labour in for a reason. So, and polls fluctuate.
I don't think it was this reason, though.
No. I understand.
I think the reason they got Labour in was because they're not the Tories.
Yeah.
And I think we've had about a month of Labour, and now we're like, could we have the Tories back, please?
What's the difference between the two?
Well, I think the Tories...
The Tories at least pretend they're doing something.
The Tories have this chaos, but at a slower pace.
At a slower pace, I agree. And they pretend. They say, we're doing something about immigration, and they're not. Whereas Labour is just, like, matter of fact, like, yeah, we're going to just, you know, we're going to give all the housing to the immigrants and put them before British people who have paid into the system. Well, at least they're honest. You know what? At least Labour are transparent. They're honest.
Well, I don't think Labour have actually said that. But that's certainly a perception that a lot of people have.
I think it was Angela Rayner who has said, I get confused with them. It's one of the women, and they've said that they're going to rehouse a lot of the migrants, and they're going to put them before British people on the waiting
list. They've got
list.
Operation Scatter, so they're going to spread them across the country to make sure every borough.
At least they were saying, look, we're going to... F you, you know, so we're going to screw you, okay?
They're ideologically committed to open borders, whereas the Tories just wanted open borders so their businesses could have cheap labour and, you know, fixed asset prices would rise, property prices would rise.
That's the whole thing. I was speaking about it at lunch today with friends, and they didn't understand. So I know a lot of gay men, there's a surprise, that all vote Tory, and they're like, but how can they? Because of, you know, Section 28 and stuff. I said, because they're all business owners. Yeah. So they all think about that. That's why they don't have any truck with it. So, I agree. You know, Tories like to look after themselves.
Yeah, they do. Well, coming up, we will assess the week's winners and losers in Cursed or Blessed. We'll see how welcome refugees are to some left-wing activists. Don't go anywhere.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
John Steinbeck once said of his 1939 novel, The Grapes of Wrath, that he intended to rip a reader's nerves to rags. Well, GB News sent its famously delicate Stephen Kyriazis to see an adaptation of the work in a London theatre, and somehow he's made it into the studio today. Give people a tiny background about The Grapes of Wrath. It's about the Depression, isn't it?
Yes, it's the Great Plains, which were absolutely ravaged by droughts. They'd completely overfarmed the topsoil, so they had all these huge dust storms, and basically the farms were worthless. So they reckon in the 1930s, about 3.5 million people left this huge central agrarian area of America. And this is a very poor, white working region. Often, many of them headed for the coast to California to this dream of orange groves, white houses, plentiful work. And we focus in on the Joad family. Very poor, very working class. Tom Chode has just got out of prison for homicide in self-defence, and he's played by one of the Treadaways, Luke Treadaway, who I confused with his twin, Harry.
Understandably.
They are identical. And so they pack everything into this kind of old-fashioned jalopy. It's a bit like Beverly Hillbillies, but not humorous. And I think there's about 13 people crammed, hanging off the sides, and they embark on this odyssey across the country. So there's all these huge themes about migration, about prejudice. They are viewed as an underclass by other Americans. So although they're migrants, they're not quite immigrants, but they're treated very poorly as almost subhuman. When they get there, the dream turns out to be false, the pay is terrible, and then very often when they take the job the next day, the pay is halved. It's a terrible life.
It's a very angry novel.
It's an angry, dark novel.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true, that.
You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. It's now time to go through the winners and losers of the week. Now, we've been told that the police are a systemically racist organisation. Well, it turns out that they actually are, just not in the way that we were told. 3 police officers won a discrimination case this week after an employment judge ruled that they were passed over for promotion because of their race. The twist, these officers were denied promotion because they're white. When a role as detective inspector became available, Superintendent Emma Bailey decided to move an Asian candidate into the role without advertising the role or going through any competitive process. The superintendent had just been told to make it happen by a senior officer, the tribunal heard. Incredibly, the Asian candidate hadn't even been promoted to inspector at the time she was made detective inspector, so she jumped 2 ranks over white candidates who may have been better qualified. This was despite warnings about the legal risks of not holding a competitive process. Now, I've got to say, Bruce, even though it's distasteful that, they just blatantly did this, it's surely better than, what they normally do, which is make everybody apply for the job and jump through all the hoops and then just pick the person they were going to pick anyway.
Yeah, completely. I mean, if it is an internal decision, just get on with it and don't make a fuss about it, because you will know if you are going against whatever your HR policy is and all that kind of stuff that you're doing wrong. So just try and get it through as quickly as possible. But we were discussing this last night about the over-promotion of people in all jobs, whether police, civil service. We talked about comedy and all that kind of thing. And it seems to be that it is less about the correct person for the job by virtue of their experience, qualifications, aptitude for the position, when you hear things like this.
Yeah, and we're seeing that in some industries because they're focusing on DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion, so they're not focusing on actual competency. So we're seeing a competency crisis. I mean, you only need to watch a Disney film that's been made in the last 5 years to see that, they're really crowbarring in as much, diversity, instead of just getting the most talented people and getting the best story and telling the story. Instead, they've got to fill it with, people who are non-binary or whatever you want to call it, and tick all sorts of boxes, and then have all this diversity propaganda in the film instead of just telling the story, which films used to do.
You don't like the preachy side of it?
I don't like the preachy side of it, and I think, it's destroying, it's destroying some entertainment, but that's fine. Nobody dies from watching a bad film, from watching, Buzz Lightyear, the movie or whatever. But where it does become an issue is where you've got a critical business such as civil engineering or of course. Airplanes. If airplanes are made the same way as a Netflix show, they fall out of the sky.
So I do agree with you that I do think a lot of things now are very preachy and it's kind of taking the fun out of it. And I also agree with you that if it's something like flying a plane, yes, you just want to get the best person for the job. I don't think that's happening yet. In regards to what's happening with the police force and allowing the Asian person to go ahead of the white person, is it wrong? On one hand, yes, but I do understand that it's good to encourage people from, ethnic minority backgrounds to join the force also. So.
Yeah, it's good to have representation. It's good for.
You can see why they've done it.
Yeah, it's good for the police to reflect the communities that they're policing, and there's going to be advantages there. But is it fair to to boost somebody over?
No, it's not fair. But you can see why they're doing it, because I do believe in inclusion very much. I'm very strong about that. Despite what people imagine. If it's going to help people from ethnic minorities to join the police force and to feel like that they're part of this, law enforcement, I think in the long run, that's a good thing, essentially.
Yeah. And I'd just like to remind anybody who wants to give me a promotion, Scottish is a type of ethnic minority. Anyway, we're told that Britain needs to open its doors to the world and accept more unvetted, undocumented men as refugees. But are the people who demand that we leave our borders open happy to open their own front doors to these people? Here's a video of pro-refugee demonstrators being asked if they'd take one in.
Just noticed your placard saying refugees welcome here. Yes. I'm just wondering if you'd like to go down on a list saying you're willing to take the refugees into your home.
Of course not. Only problem is I rent.
You rent?
Yeah.
Maybe an issue?
Yeah, because they've got,
Well, if I had any space, I
If
would.
you had
but
any
yeah,
space.
it wouldn't be
Right.
a nice place to bring them because
Yeah.
it's a bit overcrowded.
Right.
But yes,
Sorry, okay.
Rental.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
Someone else's job.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I can't.
You can't take one.
I don't have a.
Don't have the space.
Kezia, what do you make of this? Is this hypocrisy?
I don't have the space. Why don't you have the space, you moron? Let's think about it for one second. Let's analyse this. Maybe because we've got 600,000 plus people coming in every year.
Well, we've got 1.2 million.
There's less places. There are less places to literally live, OK? So it's, my goodness, the irony. They're sitting there going, please come in, but I have no space for you. Yes, let's go back now to the root cause of why you have no space where to live.
Yeah, and also it seems that, you know, these people are insisting that we have open borders, but then the people who come over aren't housed with them. They're put with, you know, deprived working-class communities in Rochdale or Rotherham or whatever.
Why don't Kensington and Chelsea. No. I live in a very wealthy area. It is full of men who are undocumented, have no fixed abode. They're living in hotels. They're not being put in the bad areas. They're put in Kensington and Chelsea. You need to tell people
it's good to hear that they're going
being put in Mayfair. This is true what I'm saying. Okay, I've seen it.
Yeah.
They're not being put in the worst places.
But they are being put in the worst.
They're putting everywhere.
Yeah, but I guess they're putting them everywhere.
Well, Nicola Sturgeon said she would take in a refugee, and I've seen no evidence of that.
And she's got a camper van.
And a camper van, exactly. That's the thing. She could have everyone everywhere.
Yeah.
I'd pop in for a buffet and mingle.
Yeah, and there could be some refugees from Scotland, the way things are going there.
I think there already are. Some of them are just called Scottish.
I kind of feel like a refugee.
I feel very left out here. You know, I did a DNA test. I got some Welsh blood in me.
Oh, really?
And Irish. Well, it's not the same, is it? I'm still left out.
Celtic.
It's Celtic. It's real Celtic, actually.
Yeah.
Real.
Interesting. So you
but
what percentage? What percentage is what are you
Irish?
mostly?
I got about 12%. Welsh was about 5%, and apparently they're the real Celts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you guys are the Vikings or something.
Okay.
You're not the real
that
ones.
explains a lot. I've always thought we were Vikings.
You feel excluded.
So I'm I am the minority. I'm the Celt.
You're in the minority, sister. I'm not having this.
And are Reform the official opposition now? A poll of voting intentions this week showed Reform overtaking the Tories again, leading them by 21% to 20%. I mean, it's a small lead, but it's a lead. And while Reform's popularity has surged, Labour's has slumped, down 6 points in the same poll to 33%. Unfortunately, this poll is a bit pointless, as there won't be an election for another 5 years, by which time Keir Starmer will no doubt have worked out how to make voting reform illegal and positioned himself as an emperor. Yeah, Bruce, you're pointing.
No, it's a rarity. I think I know something. I have a friend, and I know that's a surprise. And my friend had said that in this election, she was of the opinion that it was going to return Mr. Farage as our Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And everyone else that I spoke to said, no. That will happen in the next election.
Yeah.
I can really see it happening.
100% right.
Do you think it's going to happen?
Yes, but I think that Labour are going to do everything in their power to outlaw reform.
Yeah, well, we've seen it in other European countries.
If they don't manage to do it,
Germany,
then yes.
Germany, for example, the AfD, who are actually much more to the right than Reform. Right? Reform are a fairly centrist.
Who? From where? From
AfD
Germany?
in Germany.
Oh,
so,
Germany,
but
because Italy has been an absolute joke.
So the establishment are basically trying to make the AfD party illegal. They've got they're under police surveillance. They're classed as almost as a terrorist organisation. Some of their MPs have been prosecuted for things that they've said, even things that are perfectly true. So they've really clamped down there. I don't know if Keir is looking at that and seeing that as a.
This is going to happen. This is part of the plan. Labour have got in. They are going to silence us. They're going to silence riots. They're going to silence our voices. We can't even put up videos of the riots now on our social media. That's going to be prosecuted. They are going to make sure, no matter what, that they're going to allow mass immigration, uncontrolled immigration, to continue and continue. Italy, they brought in this new government. What have they done? They've done nothing.
Well, they've made some of the right noises.
They made the right noises, like the Conservatives.
Maybe that'll reassure.
They made the right noises.
Maybe that'll reassure some of the people.
I think Reform are going to make a difference. I'm very angry at all the people who made a big point saying, I'm not voting for anyone. this time. Well done, you got Labour, because I think the majority of those people would have voted Reform.
But we've seen, I think what's happened in Italy, where we're told, oh, this party, Meloni is a fascist. No, I don't think it is. I completely disagree with you. Like, I think they're trying their best. No, but they've got to work within the system of the EU, so they're limited in what they can actually do. But we were told that Meloni was a fascist. This is going to be the worst thing for the country. And she gets in, she's actually very sensible and centrist. So that should reassure people.
No, it's
that
not.
vote reform.
We don't want centralists anymore. We want to stop the boats coming in, and Italy have not stopped it. She's made the right noises, as you've said. She's not done anything.
I think they're trying. Anyway, next on the Saturday Night Showdown is Culture Corner. David Lammy says the far right are the people who need to integrate with society. Is he right? We're going to find out next.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Over the next 24 hours, high pressure largely holding on across the UK, keeping it fairly dry and settled. A few showers still in the flow, and we can see that on the bigger picture. Generally low pressure to the north, high pressure extending in from the southwest, keeping most weather systems at bay for the rest of the weekend. Through this evening and overnight, largely dry across much of the country. A few showers still possible across parts of Scotland, northern England, down into Wales and the West Country. But most places dry as we head through the night, and towns and cities generally holding up in double figures, but in the countryside dipping down to around 7 or 8 degrees. So a bit of a fresh start to Sunday, but there'll be plenty of sunny spells. Showers, though, possible in a few places, most prevalent across central and northern parts of Scotland. Temperatures here first thing Sunday morning around 10 to 12 Celsius, so on the fresh side, best of the sunshine towards Aberdeenshire. Northern Ireland, Northern England also a few showers possible, largely in the west, the east generally dry, and 1 or 2 showers for Wales and the West Country. Parts of the Midlands over into East Anglia, South East England, plenty of sunshine to start Sunday. Through the day, well, that high pressure generally keeps things dry and settled for many parts. More in the way of sunny spells for parts of Wales, western parts of England, Northern Ireland, that we saw quite a cloudy picture on Saturday. A few showers still possible across Scotland, but they do start to ease later in the day. Breezy here, temperatures on the cool side, 15, 16 Celsius. In the sunshine, rising into the low 20s, highs around 25 Celsius for London. Then it's all changed slowly through Monday as a weather system moves in from the Atlantic. Outbreaks of rain pushing in across Northern Ireland. The winds picking up through the Irish Sea as well. Gales developing later on in the day. Best of the sunshine holding on across the southeast. Temperatures here around 25 or 26 Celsius and staying unsettled right through much of the week. See you soon.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. Now, Reginald D. Hunter is the latest comedian to fall foul of cancel culture. And incredibly, he was investigated by the police under Humza Yousaf's hate crime act for a joke he told on stage. The American comedian had a line in his show about an abusive wife saying, "My God, it's like being married to Israel." Apparently, most of the audience laughed in response, but a Jewish man in the front row shouted, "Not funny." Reginald mocked the heckler, who felt that the audience then hounded him out of the show. The police investigated but found that no offence had been committed. However, the fallout continues, with Eastwood Theatre in Giffnock in Scotland cancelling an upcoming Reginald D. Hunter performance. And Hunter will no doubt have a non-crime hate incident on his police record. These are recorded by the police when a hate incident is alleged, but they find no evidence of criminality. Now, Bruce, I know it sounds bad to some people. You know, I read the story in the Jewish Chronicle, and Like, it sounded like he was making anti-Semitic jokes, and then joined in with the audience who were booing and shouting anti-Semitic or anti-Israel things. But reading it another way, you know, as a comedian, he'd been heckled. Never heckle a comedian. You're always going to get slammed. And then the heckler got booed out. That happens pretty much every time that somebody heckles.
But this is the whole thing. So a very good friend of mine happens to be of the Jewish faith, and had said, do you know this guy? And I happen to have known him for years, right? And he isn't anti-Semitic as far as I can see, or anything like that.
Reginald D. Hunter.
Reginald D. Hunter. But the fact of the matter is, comedy is subjective. You're in a live performance. He wasn't inciting violence. He made a comment. Offence is often taken. You know, it's not necessarily meant, if you see what I mean. It's all to do with personal interpretation. The late, great Joan Rivers, I don't know if you know, but she's a huge icon to me. She used to do a fabulous joke about what is a Jewish woman's favourite sexual position. Facing Macy's. When she was in London, she would say facing Harrods. That's just funny. As far as I can see it, and I don't mean any offence by quoting someone. Don't come for me on social media. I'm not in the mood. But the fact of the matter is, you can't just, you know, we had this with Paul Curry in the Soho Theatre not so long ago. People are just too hypersensitive. And if you're that hypersensitive, I would advise you not going to see a live performance of someone that you don't know what they're talking about. Go and see something at the theatre.
Or come see my show. I'm doing a show on Friday. You'll see equally offensive jokes, but from the other perspective. I'll make fun of Hamas, and then there'll be like a pro-Gaza person standing up and telling me that I'm not funny, and then I'll deal with them.
But as well, what I'd read in the article, that there was also people of the Jewish faith that thought it was very funny. And when people say you're not funny, because that's the easiest thing to say to a comedian, you're not funny, it should end with, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And
get over yourself.
And the wrong place. I think if you don't like a comedy show, maybe Google the comedian before you go to see if you're going to like the material. But also, you can just leave. And that's more impactful than heckling. And the fact that the police, I mean, what do you feel about the police getting involved in a comedy performance?
No, I disagree. I'm with you on this. I'm going to echo what you said. There should be no restriction on comedy. There should be none. That's the one safe place where you can say what you like about anyone, including Jews, and including everybody.
Just going back.
And if someone's offended, like you said, go to the theatre.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. But my point is, so they heckled, and then they hacked off because he interacted with a heckle. What? It's his show. He's the one with the mic. You know, and that's the same for any comedian, whether male, female, whatever. The fact of the matter is, you can't be as arrogant to think you can express your disgust on whatever level and for that to be signed off. You have to take on board that whoever is doing the piece of work, the body of work, whatever you want to call it, the show, will come back at you and just say, pipe down.
And I feel like comedy doesn't need to be policed because we already perform in front of a jury. The audience are the jury. If we say anything that's genuinely out of whack, then the audience won't laugh. They'll be offended. I think what this might speak to, the fact that the audience behaved so appallingly, might speak to the fact that there's anti-Semitism in woke progressive society, and it's unchecked, and it seems to be very fashionable right now.
I don't think there's anything wrong with what he did, but I don't like the reaction of the people who are in the audience. I agree with you on that.
And can I just say, for the people in Giffnock, it's a bougie suburb of Glasgow, right? And they have never recovered from the fact they lost Whole Foods to Lidl. There's a whole host of stuff going on there.
Oh my God, the lack of fibre.
We'll talk about mangles later.
The lack of fibre in Giffnock. Labour Foreign Secretary David Lammy says that the far right need to integrate. He said in an article for The Times that the rioters have forgotten that tolerance is one of the key values of being British. Now, I think the people smeared as far right are actually much more tolerant than their ancestors would have been. If imported stagecoach rainsmen plied a child with honey mead and with a Gadirian of Freons engaged in unwanted prinkum-prankum, local barons wouldn't cover it up for the good of diversity. Those rainsmen would have been shown the inside of an Iron Maiden. And if a Saracen had detonated an amphora of naphtha at a minstrel's recital, I don't think my ancestors would be singing "Don't Look Back in Anger." I think they'd look back in a lot of anger and burn them in a big fire. And David seems to be British when it suits him, but Caribbean when it doesn't. Take a look at this.
I'm afraid, as Caribbean people, we are not going to forget our history. We don't just want to hear an apology, we want reparation.
Reparations indeed. I mean, Kezia, I think a lot of people who've been smeared as far right were in fact just angry local people who, and I think, you know, there is a genuine far right, but I think the numbers are pretty small in the UK. I think a lot of the disorder that we saw was just from people who are genuinely angry about the state of Britain.
Exactly. And what's the definition of far right now? What is it?
Exactly. Well, yeah.
People are just concerned about undocumented young men. There's no children there, by the way. Let's just shelf that straight away. Undocumented young men coming to this country. People are just concerned about it.
Yeah.
That's far right. Wow. Wow, honestly, because I know about 30, 40 years ago, that would have not been considered far right. That would have been considered normal.
Yeah, and if we go back to our ancestors, I mean, our ancestors were crazy. They were burning people on big fires and...
It's not Scottish.
And, yeah, no, they did a lot of it in Scotland.
Again.
Yeah,
the English did the same thing.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about all of our ancestors.
I thought this was that thing
We're all
again.
part of the same island. Don't worry, we just got different accents, and some of us wear tartan skirts.
I'm scared. Because I was waiting to say something about being Scottish. It's the fact that when David Lammy had said about, you know, dual heritage or whatever, it is the fact that, do you remember when Andy Murray was winning, he was British, and when he lost, he was Scottish.
Yeah.
So it kind of cuts both ways.
Yeah. But Olympic gold, I think, sealed that for good. He's always going to be British.
God love him. That went on longer than Cher's farewell tour. It was like, you leave it your job or not. Get home to the dogs.
He'll be back next year. Moving on, the Late Show host Stephen Colbert's audience reacted with laughter after he made an apparently sincere comment about CNN, the news channel's objectivity. CNN anchor Caitlin Collins appeared on the late night comedy show, and here is what happened.
I know you guys are objective over there, that you just report the news as it is. No, I know. CNN makes a... I know.
Was that supposed to be a laugh line?
I wasn't supposed to be, but I guess it is.
Man, that's a room full of lefties, and even they know that CNN is biased. It's, you know, Stephen Colbert made a matter-of-fact point. He was trying to make a sincere point that, you know, CNN just represent the news. And even the people who watch CNN found that hilarious.
But what was interesting was the anchor didn't pick up on the laughter.
Yeah.
Ironic or otherwise.
Yeah, they seemed embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's kind of awkward. I mean, I feel like so much media is run by this cabal of leftists who tell us what they think we should be told rather than tell us the truth.
Oh, yeah, CNN are the equivalent, the US equivalent of BBC, aren't they? Am I allowed to say that?
No,
okay, BBC.
I mean, they're not funded through a regressive tax on working people. But yeah, essentially, and I think they've got fewer links to paedophilia. But yeah, essentially they're a leftist. They're a leftist cabal presenting.
I didn't say that.
Presenting. Well, I mean, it's factually correct. I don't know if you've been watching the news. Yeah. It's even been reported on the BBC. But I think most news channels. Discounting.
They were pushing a narrative. They're pushing a narrative. They pushed it during COVID. They pushed a very clear narrative, and they're pushing a narrative of the immigration and who they want next in power. Of course, yeah, CNN.
And do you think people are trusting the mass media less?
A lot of people, yes, much less, but much less. But you've got boomers.
Yeah.
Boomers listen to what BBC, CNN say.
And the CNN. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Everybody else is getting their news from TikTok and the Saturday Night Showdown. Anyway, next on the Saturday Night Showdown, that Australian Olympic breakdancer has asked for the world to stop poking fun at her performance. So we're definitely not going to do that by showing some of the best memes making fun of her. See you in a minute.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Joining us now is GB News Royal Correspondent Cameron Walker to explain exactly what this is all about. Cameron, hi. We have heard Meghan and Harry talk about their mental health issues before in the past. So tell us more about this site they're launching.
Yes, it's a very serious topic, a very ambitious site that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have launched this weekend. It's called the Parents Network, and it's set up in collaboration with 6 or 7 groups of parents who have lost, tragically, a child to suicide linked to their social media use. So it's connecting and offering help to parents who've lost a child and that can be anything from cyberbullying, depression and anxiety, sexual exploitation, eating disorders and other traumas. And sadly, there are too many examples across the world, and Meghan and Harry have decided to tackle this very important topic, but also very difficult topic to cover. Now, Meghan's critics, we heard from that clip there, she was talking about her own experience of suicidal thoughts when she was a working member of the royal family. Her critics will say, why on earth is she making it all about herself? To be fair to Meghan, when the journalist Jane Pooley asks her, Jane Pooley specifically asked her about her suicidal thoughts when she was a working member of the royal family, she wasn't expecting it. She did give, to be fair, quite an eloquent answer, and Prince Harry then talks about the fact that all parents across the world need to be first responders when they're talking about helping their children overcome mental health problems related to social media use. There's lots of help and resources on the Archwell website, and I think it's going to be a while before we see if any of the words we've heard from Duke and Duchess of Sussex in this interview have any substance or any tangible impact going forward.
Brilliant. That's our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained. I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Australian breakdancer Rachel Gunn, a.k.a. B-Girl Ray Gunn, caused some bemusement with her street dance routine at the Paris Olympics. Her unorthodox performance is the subject of a social media storm. She says the backlash to her performance at the Olympics has been devastating. Let's take a look.
Hi everyone, Ray Gunn here. I just want to start by thanking all the people who have supported me. I really appreciate the positivity, and I'm glad I was able to bring some joy into your lives. I didn't realize that that would also open the door to so much hate, which has frankly been pretty devastating. I'd really like to ask the press to please stop harassing my family, my friends, the Australian breaking community and the broader street dance community.
I'm so disappointed with Ray Gunn. I thought she was, she was the Eddie the Eagle of this year's Olympics, but instead she's got all serious about it. And she's been criticised by people on the left. Someone said she is simply the ultimate white woman. She got her PhD in an art form created by people of colour, went on to possibly the biggest global stage the art form will ever have, and made a mockery of the art form to centre herself in the conversation. I mean, some people have also said that she's taken a spot that could have gone to a more talented and younger person of colour who needs the break, such as me. I mean, is this fair, this criticism?
I don't think anybody should be targeted on social media, like, in such a way.
You've been targeted on social media in such a way, haven't you?
No, I haven't, actually.
Oh, you haven't?
I've been pretty okay, yeah.
Okay, I have.
But I have seen it done to other people, and I think target politicians for sure, because they have, like, power over your life and your future. This woman really doesn't, okay? She's just some break dancer in the Olympics. I understand, like, people can, like, say, look, I think that this person could have been better and so forth, but to get nasty about it, to get horrible about it, I don't understand that. I would never attack someone that way. I'd only attack politicians online.
It's the equivalent of, like, judging a street performer at the Edinburgh Fringe. You know, they've gone up to do, or they're just doing a show. You know, let it get on with it. I used to be a breakdancer. I know that will come as a surprise.
What?
Let's try this out.
What?
Can you do it on the table?
I still can do it, but I'm not going to do it.
Please, I'll pay you.
Absolutely not.
How much? I got a credit card.
But no, I used to go to the Overgate Centre with my cousin at the age of 12, 14, and breakdance on the lino.
Wow, amazing stuff. Well, ray guns dancing has been compared to a Labrador rolling in foxpoo. I'm not sure if that's what yours was like. But let's see some of the memes that have lit up the internet. A recent poll from research company. Was that anything like you, Bruce?
No, it was better than that.
The Homer Simpson?
No, but you know what? I think this is showing that flexibility. She has great flexibility.
She does.
Her hips are open, her joints are long, they're supple, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
To say that she's a fox rolling around in faeces, that's a bit much.
It's horrible.
Well, some of those Labradors are very supple as well.
Well, yes, but my point would be, if things have really been as hellish for her, stop engaging in it then.
Yeah, just turn off.
I'm not saying that that's the right thing, but if it's causing you such great distress, stop engaging.
And a recent poll from YouGov shows that 27% of adults in Britain believe that they could qualify for the 2020 Olympics if they started training today. But looking at some of the people like this rather unaerodynamic American target shooter, I don't think they'd even need to start training. I love the caption on that, by the way. It says the flag patch was not necessary because you can tell they're American. Do you think you're gonna try and train for the Olympics? Do you think you could?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you know, I think I could do the 100 metre in 4 years. I used to be I used to do the 100 metres. I used to do, you know, proper training, and
right, yeah.
I got to about 14 and I chose cigarettes and boys instead.
Right, yeah. Well, maybe that
decision.
Maybe cigarettes and boys will become an Olympic sport. And I guess for some sports, the person taking part is basically just ballast. If you're on the one where you're on a horse that's doing the tippy-toe dancing, like, the horse is doing all the work.
Do you mean dressage?
Dressage, that's the
right. Okay, I was just going to say that I can make a litre of gin disappear in 3 hours. Right. So I'll maybe try and get my time down to 2.
Let's do that. Let's have a match. Watch, I get the gold.
This would be an interesting Olympic sport. So we've got the cigarettes on one side, the litre of gin on the other side. I think
Not cigarettes anymore.
This is Oasis. If Oasis ran the Olympics. Right, up next, it's Ben Leo tonight. What have you got for us this evening, Ben?
Thanks, Leo. Cracking show. Look, a massive exclusive bombshell, I'd call it, in just a few minutes at the top of the 9 o'clock on the small boats crisis. I'm not going to reveal too much details because I want you lovely viewers to tune in. However, it should really send shockwaves through the nation and indeed this Labour government. And also, Leo, Jimmy Savile, Jonathan King, Stuart Hall, Chris Denning, Rolf Harris, and new allegations tonight against Hugh Edwards. What's going on at the BBC?
You were describing your panel there. Anyway, thanks to my brilliant panel tonight, Kezia Noble and Bruce Devlin, and we will see you again next week. And don't forget headliners as well tonight at 11 p.m. And I am performing a comedy show with Francis Foster of Trigonometry on Friday. If you want to come along and get offended by that, people always seem to get offended by somebody described it as a far-right rally disguised as a comedy show, like as if the Nazis started out as a comedy night above a pub. Anyway, come along to that. If I don't see you there, I'll hopefully see you next week on the Saturday Night Showdown. Till then, goodbye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Over the next 24 hours, high pressure largely holding on across the UK, keeping it fairly dry and settled. A few showers still in the flow, and we can see that on the bigger picture. Generally low pressure to the north, high pressure extending in from the southwest, keeping most weather systems at bay for the rest of the weekend. Through this evening and overnight, largely dry across much of the country. A few showers still possible across parts of Scotland, northern England, down into Wales and the West Country. But most places dry as we head through the night, and towns and cities generally holding up in double figures. But in the countryside, dipping down to around 7 or 8 degrees. So a bit of a fresh start to Sunday, but there'll be plenty of sunny spells. Showers, though, possible in a few places, most prevalent across central and northern parts of Scotland. Temperatures here first thing Sunday morning. morning, around 10 to 12 Celsius. So on the fresh side, best of the sunshine towards Aberdeenshire. Northern Ireland, Northern England also a few showers possible, largely in the west. The east generally dry, and 1 or 2 showers for Wales and the West Country. Parts of the Midlands over into East Anglia, South East England, plenty of sunshine to start Sunday. Through the day, well, that high pressure generally keeps things dry and settled for many parts. More in the way of sunny spells for parts of Wales, western parts of England, Northern Ireland that saw quite a cloudy picture on Saturday. A few showers still possible across Scotland, but they do start to ease later in the day. Breezy here, temperatures on the cool side, 15, 16 Celsius. In the sunshine, rising into the low 20s, highs around 25 Celsius for London. Then it's all changed slowly through Monday as a weather system moves in from the Atlantic. Outbreaks of rain pushing in across Northern Ireland. The winds picking up through the Irish Sea as well. Gales developing later on in the day. Best of the sunshine holding on across the southeast. Temperatures here around 25 or 26 Celsius and staying unsettled right through much of the week. See you soon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at